So, before we go official, is there anything anybody wants to talk about before we're already broadcasting, so we've lost that privacy. Before we go official, is there anything anybody wants to talk about before okay. So I need
We're already
to
broadcasting, so we've lost that privacy.
all right. Good.
I do have a question if you're up for questions.
Somebody had a question?
This is Orion. How do you find a mentor?
Well, in what arena?
Writing.
In a writing mentor.
Mhm.
And what exactly is it that you want from this person?
To find someone that's ahead of me and pursue them.
Okay, but what is it that you want from them? You want to talk to them about craft, you want them to read over your writing, you want them to help you make business connections, you want them to help you get an agent. What do you want?
Um, I want to learn more about the craft of writing and be encouraged to do it.
Okay, well, I would strongly suggest, first of all, you could write to people whose writing you admire and see if anybody responds. But I would definitely suggest that you use us. You talk to us every week. And so we can talk about writing, right here. Uh, we've done a huge amount of lecturing on writing and writing on writing. If you really, really wanted to do it, I cannot help but suggest that you join the Life Writing Premium program. It's a year
I've been
long.
considering that.
Well, then you have, what is it that you feel like you're not getting?
Um, I used to be so passionate about writing that I would do it every day. And then I lost my access to my writing partners. And I feel like I have not the responsibility between us.
Okay. So repeat that, the last thing you said, that was something about responsibility.
I don't have the responsibility between my co-writers and myself to encourage me to keep going.
Well, it almost sounds like what you're looking for is sort of a writing buddy, somebody
Yes,
who you encourage them to write, they encourage you to write, and you check in with them every week. In other words, it's
Accountability partner, they
an
call it.
accountability partner. Let's
yes.
let's save that for the show. Let's actually start the show.
Okay.
Welcome to Firedance. Steve Barnes here out at LAX and in Larry Niven's room. Larry will be joining us at some point to talk about writing, as a matter of fact.
Yay.
And speaking of writing, I would like to introduce my lovely and incredibly talented co-host and writing partner and wifey.
Hello. I'm here
Hi.
visiting my dad, as those of you who get my newsletter might have seen, and having a great mini writers retreat while I get to catch up with my dad, who's 89. So
Nice.
yeah,
That's
having
wonderful. Make sure to say hi to him for me.
I sure will. We
Um,
just watched Coming to America. For some reason, I was telling Steve the John Landis comedies of the 80s really keep his attention. Blues Brothers, Coming to America. I think it's the spectacle.
well, I think Landis worked with Eddie Murphy really well,
Yeah.
and I think that he also worked with Danny Aykroyd and John Belushi well. I mean, he did pull it off, which led him to thinking that he was more familiar with certain cultural customs than he was, got him into
Yes, of
trouble on
course.
on
I'm
on
sure
one.
he did. In fact, like, yeah, he got in trouble all around. But, between that and the Thriller videos, I would be lying if I didn't say I was a fan of his work. But anyway, enough about that.
Yeah,
Very good to see everybody. And I
enough
will.
about that.
Oh,
Look
yeah,
who we
my
got
camera.
here.
Oh, look, the
We got here.
guest of honor has arrived.
Our guest of honor has arrived.
Mhm.
And this is Larry Niven, one of the absolute most important human beings in my life, my surrogate father, my
Ooh.
spiritual guide as a writer. And it's my extraordinary honor to have him in my life. I just picked him up this morning to deliver him to the space conference. And so we had a question from Orion earlier but she wants to be more regular with her writing. And we were talking about that. So I think that I can give an attitude, I can give a comment, and Tanami can, but I am going to take that question to Larry in just a minute, if you don't mind. Would you mind that?
I was advised by the famous writers school correspondence course to set a schedule for myself for writing. That was 55 years ago. I tried that for a while. It turns out that my best move is to write down whatever story occurs to me as fast as possible.
Now, what do you mean? Do you mean like write an outline of it
Uh,
or write the story
I
itself?
mean, write enough of a note to remind me of what I said, unless I'm feeling uh, creative, in which case I sit down and try to write the whole story.
So, Orion, if I would suggest that you connect this with Think and Grow Rich, because on 2 days ago I was at the Huntington Library talking about Octavia Butler, and there it was on creativity as praxis, creativity as a discipline, and because I've been working with that stuff a lot, and one of the specific steps has to do with imagination. So problem solving is imagination, and writing is largely problem solving. So it felt like it fit. And the process there, one of the first most important first most important step is to have desire. Okay. And I'm gonna get with Larry on each and every one of these steps in a minute, but it's gonna go from desire to faith. In other words, so you want to do it, and faith is you believe you can do it and that you should do it. And the third step is auto suggestion, which is just their way of being sure that your internal dialogue, your emotions are in alignment with what you need to do in order to create the work. So if you're not writing, there might be something inside you that doubts whether or not you can do it first. So you're going to want to look at that, or whether or not you feel like it's okay to do it. Or what is your identity in terms of doing it? Because if your identity was as that I am a writer, if that's what you thought of yourself as doing, then every day you have to write. If you're not writing, you're not a writer in that sense. Okay, you're an author. You have written, but you're not a writer per se. So that's what autosuggestion does. After that, then you get into research. And to Tananarive, this is going to turn into a mini workshop. If you understand that what they're talking about in this process is applicable to almost anything, then it's not specific to writing. So we'll let me just get to imagination, and then I promise we'll circle back. So imagination then leads to organized plans. So in this particular case, it might be either a work schedule or it could be an outline of a story. It's just like you literally write a synopsis of the story. It's organized plan to do it. Or it could be, today I will write this many pages and I'll call these people and I'll do this, to support this work and so forth and so on. After you do that, you have to commit. You have to say, I'm going to do it and start taking the action. Okay. After you commit, it's persistence. That if your commitment is to do X pages per day, then you actually have to do that. Okay. So those steps then lead to actually, no, no, no. Yeah. So I missed something. I missed something. It's important. After intensive research, it's imagination. You come up with ideas connected with your story or your problem or your issue. So it goes from intense desire to faith that you can do it, to autosuggestion, to align your internal resources with the external task. You do massive research, after which you come up with ideas. You brainstorm. Okay. After you have those ideas, you organize those ideas into organized plans. Okay. And after
May I say one quick thing
go for it.
and you not lose your train of thought? Hello, everybody. Um, so the research piece, those of you who get my newsletter have heard me talking about how I've had these amazing creative breakthroughs because of research, and I get so excited about it. It's all I can do to contain myself so I don't run off and share my research on social media, but I've learned not to do that. I'm not going to talk about that. But in any case, it very often when writers are facing writer's block, at least in my case, it's because that blank page represents a lack of understanding of your world, a lack, like I didn't, it's 2 years after I introduced my characters. I didn't know her anymore because she was 7 and now she's 9. They're living in a different place. I wasn't around in 1928. What's the job market like in California for a Black family that just moved there in 1928? Like there were so many things I didn't know. The Sears catalog wasn't enough, to help me just picture what their house would look like. I needed so much more. And every time I dove into the research, I was just crackling with creativity about, how it would affect my characters because now finally I could see. It was like this fog bank over the scene, but now I could see. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
That's great. And we will come back to that. I just want to hurry up and finish before I do lose that train of thought. You go from desire to faith to autosuggestion to research to imagination, coming up with ideas, to making a commitment to do it, to being persistent, to continuing along that path, to finding a mastermind. And that's as far as I'm going to take it, because a mastermind can be a single writing partner. It could be a friend that you are responsible to. A mastermind is two people looking in the same direction with the same goals. So we have an incredible opportunity here to talk to one of the best of the best of the best ever. So I would like to kind of go down that process. When did you first realize you had a desire to write, Larry? Because I think that by understanding how a master thinks about these things, it's going to be useful both for writers and for people who want to be superb at anything. Go for it.
I was 10 when I wrote a 3 or 4 page novel that set in Oz, Land of Oz. I thought I wanted to be a writer then. I thought I could maybe make a living at it when a full-fledged story idea came to me about age 24. It was the first story of the Xinti. It
I
came
read
to
that book.
full-fledged, and I tried to sell it to first Analog and then Worlds of If, or rather Frederick Pohl.
So a question, did you sell that story? Did you write that story and sell it?
I sold that story after many rewrites suggested by Frederick Pohl.
Oh, that's the one. That's right. You were talking about that on the way down. So Frederick Pohl is one of your masterminds.
You betcha.
He in the magic formula, he'd be one of your models. If one of the reasons why in our 6-step life writing process, we say, submit the stories for publication and do not rewrite. Once you submitted it, go on to the next story. Don't rewrite except to editorial request. Larry got an editorial request from one of the best in the field, Frederick Pohl. Yeah. And so what were the kinds of things that Frederick Pohl said to you?
I'm reaching 55 years into the past here. So I don't really remember. I think it was obvious stuff, not just characterization, but more action, more description of the spacecraft I had given the humans. The spacecraft I gave the city was obvious enough. They've got generated gravity and weapons lasers.
So the question I have for you is, when you got a rejection slip, the unsuccessful writer, the eternal amateur, gets hurt by that.
I got a number of rejection slips.
How did you feel about those rejections? What was your emotional reaction?
I was told I needed to paper a bathroom with rejection slips before I was a professional.
Tananarive?
I believed it.
Okay. Tananarive was told the same thing, that she needed to
Yeah.
paper her wall.
Sorry, I'm here.
No. So Larry was told that he had to paper a wall with rejection slips.
Oh, wow. So what my high school English teacher told me wasn't even original. No, but that's exactly what she said. You have to wallpaper your wall. And it was the most helpful advice because it was a picture of what my journey would look like, which filled me with positivity. It's like, oh, I can visualize this wall wallpapered with rejection slips. That kind of took the sting out of it. Like at first it was very exciting. Oh, a rejection slip. And I would put it up on my door. And then I put another one up. It got old though, Larry. I have to say, it got old.
I assumed I was on track. That's that that helped.
So you were fortunate in that your family provided sufficient security that you knew you weren't going to starve.
Yes.
So you had the time to develop. My guess is a writer like you would have been a writer no matter what, but that made it easier.
It might have taken me 5 years to tell my first.
Yeah. How long did it take
It
instead?
took me a little over one.
A little over 1 year. That's fantastic. Okay. So the next step thing is the faith thing. You felt that you were a writer. Inside you, you felt that. You didn't have any imposter voices. There wasn't anything inside you saying you can't do this.
Though only while I was writing did I understand how much I didn't know. When I was dreaming up stories, they generally came complete, or they came to where I could add bits and things over the days.
So when you had a story idea, you had a story idea. You basically saw the whole thing in your head.
Yeah, Neutron Star, my first Hugo winner. I dreamed that up in college with a professional hero involved. My first breakthrough was creating Beowulf Schaefer instead. He's uh, he's just trying to get out of debtor's prison when we pick him up.
Now, debtor's prison, he's did you think about that as just kind of a random character bit, or you're saying this will motivate him? How did you come up with that?
I was already into trying to predict the future, and it seemed to me the future might well include debtors' prisons. The argument against debtors' prison is obvious enough. How are you going to earn the money while you're in prison?
Right.
But the counter argument is you're setting an example.
That it's good for society, it's not necessarily good for the individual.
Exactly.
Okay. So you you've said that some of your family was against you being a writer, and some of your family was excited about you being a writer. Talk to us a little bit about that.
A little more detail on that. My family, and I had a bunch of uncles, and talking to them, they thought I could use a hobby, and it was writing, but I should get a life. My other side was the Niven family, just my dad and my stepmother, and they thought writing was wonderful.
Mm.
And I thought writing was wonderful.
So, you understand the value here of having faith that this is something you should be doing. In the magic formula, that's the C. It's congruent, that the feeling that the thing you're doing is right. It's you. You wake up in the morning and you ask yourself, this is who I am. What does a person like me do? Oh, I get out of bed, I eat, I write, or whatever it is that you say to yourself. So notice that every one of these steps that we're going to go through here, compare that to the way you feel about things. Do you have an intense desire to do the thing you want to do? Do you have faith that you can do it? If you don't have faith you can do it, if there are negatives, then you can use auto-suggestion, other techniques to align yourself. But then you move on to the next thing. Once you had that, you were reading encyclopedically. You
Yeah.
just you read everything you could get your hands on. So
True.
talk to us about that a little bit.
Um, I don't, I don't think I don't think there's anything here that isn't obvious. I just like to read. I learned to read when I was a kid. I flunked out of Caltech because I had found a bookstore that sold used magazines, cheap, used science fiction mostly.
And so you were just reading constantly.
Yeah,
So that's that you don't, or at least you did not, tend to do specific research for projects. You tended to read and then write projects based upon what was already bouncing around inside your head.
correct. Not every writer does that, but I read and wait for inspiration.
And
And
let me ask you a question. In times when you're not feeling inspired, do you or did you have ways of getting yourself to write anyway?
if I'm not feeling inspired, I often try to write. Yes.
So, how would you motivate yourself to take action if you're not feeling
Uh,
inspired?
I remember specifically Robert Silverberg asked me to ask me and two other writers to write novellas about teleportation. The others were Jack Vance and John Brunner. And John wrote a story I kind of wish I hadn't read. And, and Jack Vance was absolutely brilliant. And I wasn't inspired. So I sat down at my typewriter and I started making lists. I made two lists. One, who gets hurt when teleportation becomes universal and cheap worldwide. And there were some obvious things.
Well, for instance,
The airline companies are going to be hurt, and and airline companies, freeways are going to become parks.
automobile companies, bus lines, trains,
You
ocean
betcha.
liners are going to have real problems.
Yeah, and uh, and crime. If you can get yourself anywhere in less than a second, uh, the police are going to have real trouble with you not having an alibi, because you will have an alibi.
Except that the meaning of the term alibi starts changing if everybody knows that you can get anywhere instantly.
Yeah,
So it would be like the first generation of criminals when teleportation is still kind of secretive are going to have a fantastic advantage if they know more about teleportation than the cops do.
yeah.
And if the cops know more about teleportation than the criminals are in trouble.
Well, in fact, they solved it in my story.
What was the solution?
The second list was I made up a name, Jerry Berry Johnson.
Okay.
Uh, I worked on who gets hurt, how does he get hurt, and mostly his father gets hurt, so he's out of his inheritance. And his father gets hurt because he invests in airlines, and loses a lot of money before the airlines decide they should be the sites for the teleport booths.
So you created a couple lists. The first one is who gets hurt, and then how did a specific person get hurt?
How did my character get hurt?
So what was the point at which you could feel yourself emotionally engaging with the stories? Like suddenly there had to be a point where a light went on and you said, oh, okay. What was that point?
I got to that point while I was writing. And it wasn't just a point. I just gradually got into Jerry Berry's world. And by the end of it, no, flash crowds happened right away. The notion of a flash crowd, newspapers report that something is happening, such as a riot, and they over-report it. And everybody who wants to be in a riot shows up. now you got a riot. These include criminals, pickpockets, uh, people who smash the window of a grocery store or super or well, store, smash, grab, whatever you like, and everybody else is doing the same thing around you. Also, newspapermen want to show up, newspapers.
So there are a couple of different reasons, a couple of different things I wanted to talk about there, because if you're reading all the time and you're reading both fiction and nonfiction, then that sets you up. That's your research. Okay, that's what
Yeah.
that's specialized knowledge in the science fiction field, both the
Yeah.
technologies, the sciences. How does this relate to science fiction? But you're also reading other forms of fiction too.
Yeah, and sometimes it just comes right out of the blue sky. There's nothing that would have inspired me about teleportation except just daydreaming about it.
So we have somebody who is, Orion was interested in writing, but finds that she's not doing enough writing. She was looking for a partner. So what I wanted to look at here is the first person who kind of reached out to you was Frederick Pohl, and you created
Mind you, I had first reached out to him.
you first reached out to him, and he responded to you by looking at your story and basically saying there's something here that is worthwhile.
Yeah.
And why don't you change a little bit? So that helped with that. In between there is that persistence thing. You made a decision to be a writer.
Yeah.
You dropped out of Caltech, right?
And that may have impressed Frederick Pohl, because I don't doubt that I sent him several stories before he triggered on one.
So that persistence thing then factors in. The editor saw that you were serious about being a writer because you kept sending stories. And at some point, they kind of said, well, this kid ain't going away. Let me help him. And so if we know that what's needed is not just role models, but people to brainstorm with, and arguably partners, you have collaborated probably with more different people than anybody I know of in the field. You must love collaboration. And in certain cases, it's
Yes, I do.
You're in the teaching position, as you were with me.
Yeah.
In other cases, it's in more of a partnership position, as it was with Jerry Pornell.
It may not be obvious, but Jerry and I gloried in teaching each other.
So talk about a little bit about that relationship, because it became the most successful partnership in the history of science fiction. So how did you guys get together? How did this happen?
Jerry tracked me down. I should mention the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society. Join a society where you can find other writers. I did that, and I've met several, in fact.
Yeah, you met me there.
Yeah.
I tracked you down
Not
too.
just you. I met Jerry there too. And we had known each other a little bit when he suggested collaborating.
So if we march through those basic steps, a lot of information has been condensed in what Larry said. And what between that, I want to do it, I believe I can do it, I'm going to research doing it, I'm going to come up with a lot of ideas, I'm going to form those ideas, I'm going to commit to this, I'm going to be persistent, and then I'm going to find a partner. And that could be a writing buddy, an accountability partner. It could be somebody you're actually writing with. It could be an editor. It could be somebody who will read your stuff and make a comment about it. But having another human being who you are talking to. You told me a long time ago that you write to a reader who is as smart as you, but not as knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that a little bit.
Okay. Imaginary reader. He wants to hear what I want to say. I want to tell him a story. I want to entertain him. I want to educate him. He, as Stephen says, knows a little so he can follow my stories. because I'm going to get esoteric on occasion. That lets out a lot of the population. The only few times I've tried to reach an absolute general audience and dumbed it down a little was when I was writing with Jerry, Lucifer's Hammer and Footfall.
Really? You
Yeah.
felt like Footfall was dumbed down?
Look at the alien, the fifth. I start with an elephant. I dwarf him because of weather changes in the planet. I cause a lot of floods, so he's got a paddle-like tail and can swim. And I start him with a trunk that bifurcates to form a a tool. This is, if I wanted a real alien, I'd do a Modi engineer.
Right.
Yes, I dumbed the alien down a little so I could describe him better, and I described him well enough to set a murder mystery in the book, among the fifth.
So one of the things that I want to do here, I'm going to remove the spotlight. I want to give people an opportunity to ask questions. And, there are fans here who could ask fanish questions, but the writers here, I hope, will ask questions that we can kind of brainstorm about. And remember that you can go from science fiction writing to writing in general to creativity in general. That anything that's there, and no matter what business you're in or what it is you want to do, you're going to have to be creative. You're going to have to be able to not just observe issues, but come up with solutions for problems that a lot of times other people haven't even seen that there are problems. If you can see a problem that no one else has seen and answer it, you have what's called a blue ocean in terms of marketing. That it's like, a red ocean is there are lots of customers, but there are also a lot of sharks. But a blue ocean is there are a lot of customers, but the sharks haven't shown up yet. So a mind like Larry's, if if you could adapt that mind to a purely business situation, you're talking about success. Uh, I would imagine that in general, working for yourself in the arts, you're going to earn probably at least 50% more working for somebody else in a business. I mean, it's much easier to do that. So whenever you have a chance to talk to somebody who has mastered an art, get your questions ready. So that's one of the first things I want to do then is to get you guys to raise your hands. Is there anybody who has a question for me or Larry about writing, about science fiction? You could ask about his career if you wanted to, but we just happen to have this circumstance where one of the greatest science fiction writers in the world is sitting right here, and some of you would like to write science fiction or would like to write or enjoy reading. So what would you like to ask him? Any questions? Don't embarrass me, people. Somebody ask a question. Raise your hand. No hands raised?
They
Nobody?
were mighty loud in chat talking about, oh, he must be referring to this story or that story, and oh, he's predicting this, he's predicting that. Now they're all shy.
That could be. That could be. We have a hand up here. Rebecca Lillenfield.
Hi, Becky.
Hey Larry, how you doing? I was wondering, I just have a general question about world building. It's one of the things I find most difficult about storytelling is getting started on world building. And I was wondering if you had any advice on sort of how to start thinking about structuring your world.
Great question.
Because of my hearing, I have to hear that again.
Okay, so she would like to know what suggestions you have about world building.
Oh, I would say you're going to be world building from the start. You need a background. Your story doesn't happen all by itself. Sometimes a background is easy. Bar story. Bars are easy to describe. Sometimes you need to have researched planet building. Poul Anderson tried to tell writers that 60 or 70 years ago. They didn't like it They wanted to write like Ray Bradbury.
So the question is, what do you need to do to research how to build a world? How do you research that?
As I say, research what it takes to build a planet. But that's for science fiction writers. You don't always need that. You need to write about what you know. And I don't know how to justify that as a science fiction writer. I just know from doing my research.
So let me just say that from my position, you would need to understand physics and geology, and then the formation of a planet, astrophysics, or the planetary, what's that planetary what's that discipline for building planets?
Let's see. Yeah, I'd call it astrophysics.
Yeah, astrophysics. Okay. And you go from there to biology. So you'll start understanding how life begins and studying evolutionary biology. And then eventually, when you start getting up to intelligent animals, you start getting into questions like anthropology and sociology and how do societies develop and how do human beings form into groups and how does this and how does that. If you understand our world and the different levels of how to, starting with the Big Bang. And one of the things I got for Larry for Christmas about 10 years ago was a course called Big History that basically goes through the entire history of the universe one level at a time. You can't do better than that course. You can find it at Wondrium or the Great Courses. Fantastic, fantastic course.
My dad and stepmother got me to a course in anthropology that included the Olduvai Gorge body.
Lucy.
And yeah, and from there I extrapolated the pack protector, the adult form of humanity, where humanity is childhood, breeder, adult. Adults show every symptom of age extrapolated to something like a weapon.
What do you mean?
Your teeth go, but your gums become a killing tool.
Your gums become a killing tool. You gum someone to death. Okay.
Your heart gets fainter, but you develop another heart down at the femoral arteries, where the femoral arteries join. Your brain expands. Your nose becomes more sensitive because you don't have any sex urge anymore. You're looking to protect your bloodline. You need to smell your bloodline. There were some other features I put in.
But that's all from your study of Lucy at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. Yeah. That's great.
Somehow.
That's great. All right, Alexander James Adams.
All right, so this is for both of you gentlemen and your wife, Stephen. This is out of left field, and it might be a naughty question to ask because all three of you are published authors that have gotten, accepted by book publishing companies.
What's the choice?
Provided that I have run this through three different qualified, experienced editors, what dangers do you see in self-publishing?
Your editor really is your best unpaid employee, as far as you're concerned. At the same time, you're listening to three editors.
So when you say editors, are these professional people who could buy your book?
No, they can't buy the book, but they have done editing themselves and they are authors themselves.
I would say that the biggest danger is that you're letting your fear stop you from having a particular barrier you want to get across that is going to require you to challenge yourself. And not only that, but if you self-publish, now you're a publishing company. You're not an author.
Right.
Now, if you've got the chops to be a publishing company, that's a different question. And it's a different set of things. But understanding marketing and so forth and so on. My thought here, Alexander, is that you want to break out of the box you're in. that the box you're in, the people who know who you are and so forth, they're already your fans. In order for you to go up a level in terms of your career, you got to reach completely new people who've never heard of you. And if you have a plan to do that and you're prepared to be a publishing company and handle all that, then maybe there isn't a huge disadvantage. But I never suggest that people self-publish. I always suggest, and part of that is simply that's what I know. So I'm not going to say that it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. They're wonderful people who self-publish. But I also know that there are lousy people who self-publish, and there's no bottom. There,
Yeah.
that how does anybody know that you're better than somebody who didn't even finish fifth grade? I mean, seriously, it can be really bad. Tananari, what do you think about this issue?
I was just trying to find a way to message you to frame the camera because this is such a great experience. I want to make sure both of your faces are fully
You
shown
got it. Hold on.
times. That's the producer in me. Um, you just shift it over a little bit. That it would, yeah,
There.
perfect for that YouTube replay that everyone will want. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I do agree going back to the story of the wallpaper, wallpaper your wall with rejection slips does imply a heartbreaking journey of being told no over and over and over again. We had Joe Hill on our podcast, and he talked about years of rejection for his first novels, Pardon me, I just did a nasal rinse. Um, so there is that part that it's kind of the gauntlet, is sort of the rite of passage in publishing to get sort of your teeth kicked in. But at the same time, sometimes there is a mismatch between a writer's voice in the marketplace. And the most important thing is getting published. And if it's not a matter of quality, where you would look back on it years later and be like, oh my gosh, how embarrassing that I put my name on this because I wasn't ready. You know, um, if it's not that, and of course it's hard to tell in the moment, then it's just how long are you willing to wait before you see this work published?
Yeah, I'm in a very funny little place because I'm not really I had not intended to be an author or a writer. I'm a musician
mm,
and I'm in a company that is producing musical productions and stage shows and the basically the CEO and instigator of the company came up with this funny idea to do a children's storybook that was pictures and stuff reflecting the rock opera that we wrote 2 years ago. And I said, yeah, sure. And I wrote this little see the dog run, basic words. And I guess he ran it through his editor and she said, oh my God, this guy knows how to write. Let him do a bigger story. So now I'm sitting here with a 45,000 word book that I'm just about finishing.
And they want to publish it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the question for you. How are you getting paid?
I get it's really actually quite kind. I'm getting a very large percentage of the actual sales of the book.
How
Plus,
large?
Probably I think about 60%.
Okay. Okay. So if the company is a real company, if they really do have distribution, if they know how to sell things, then that's not a terrible choice. I mean, go ahead and try it since they're already engaged, but for future publications, I would suggest try a more traditional route because we can be of greater help to you there. But try it both ways and see what happens. Why not? Okay? All
Thanks.
right. You bet. So,
People in, Stephen?
huh?
Some people trying to get in.
Some
Oh.
people
I don't see names.
let me see if I
Yeah,
don't see-
Shakir just texted me. He said he's been trying to get in. He said it's still a no, no worries. I may be too late.
no,
No, there's no one showing up in the waiting room though.
yeah, I'm not seeing it. So, Orion,
Maybe I'll text you another invitation for them and we'll see.
Orion, question. you're turn on your sound, honey. Nope, sound. You're muted. You're muted.
Got it.
Yeah, there you are.
I was wondering if it helped to have a dedicated time every day to do the writing. Does that make it easier?
I tried it, uh, eventually gave it up. I write when I feel like it.
But the first word is the most important. The first thing you said, I tried it. Try it. See.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, absolutely, that is absolutely what they need. They need to go ahead.
For some, it's vital. For me, it may have been vital for the first year or two or three. I tried it. I found I could do without it.
But for you, Orion, since you're having some problems there, I would suggest that you try about 5 different things at the same time. You have a writing buddy, you have a time that you write, you have a specific place, and you put on a particular hat when you're writing, you put on particular music when you start writing, that you do all of those things at the same time, and you keep track and you see what works. But you make a commitment that you're going to write a certain number of words. Now, if you're doing the life writing system, then your commitment is to write at least 1 sentence every day and at least 1 story every month. Now, it could be a 1-page story. I don't care. But you do have to write. And then if you're not doing it, you know that the problem is not out there someplace. The problem is that you're not supporting yourself. So this would be a great thing for you to do, in terms of affirmations. Just I'm a writer. I'm a hell of a writer. I read a book a week. I write a story a month. I enjoy writing. Writing is fun. Whatever it is that you need that would need for you to feel like this is something that brings you great pleasure, great joy. Writing should be fun. Writing is one of the favorite things in my life, and you're looking at one of my greatest playmates right here that I still get to play with. That space that we do, that space of creativity. You were about to say something, Larry?
Yeah, this is why you need an imaginary reader. You need to be talking to him or her.
Yeah. So who is your reader, Orion?
Actually, my reader didn't have a gender.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. Who do you imagine reading it and enjoying it? And how do you want them to feel when they're reading it and feel when they put it down? Create that emotional connection. You know what motivates you because you've motivated yourself to do many things over the course of your life. Start looking at that. It's like, God, I'm motivated when I make a promise to somebody else. I'm motivated when there's money on the line. I'm motivated if it's a naughty situation. I'm motivated when you get into that. And I would suggest that are you talking about writing stories?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
mostly
one
flashback.
trick you can use is write a story about somebody who wants to write a story and is blocked.
Okay.
Because if you could write that story, you're going to solve your own problem.
Second opinion, if you think writing is the most interesting thing to write about, you're not going to make it. The most interesting thing to write about is whatever else you find interesting.
Mhm.
So what do you find most interesting, Orion, in life?
If you have a day job, that might help.
No, I'm retired. I'm 78, and it's now I can really do my writing instead of having to go to someplace else every day.
You've had decades of experience.
That's right. So put your finger on something that was incredibly fun. Something, you deserve fun or something that moves you emotionally. Would you prefer to write about something that is fun and happy, something that is scary, something that is painful? What is your preferred emotion?
Mostly I trash my characters.
Hmm.
And
You what?
I really enjoy making music.
Okay, so why don't you think about a story about the moment at which someone has a creative breakthrough with music that lights their life on fire?
I like that.
A moment when something went really right. It felt really good, and choose some moment in your own life where it was just, you came home just, your body and mind and your heart just humming. It's like, that was great. What was a great moment? Now tell us about it. Write a story about a great moment in your life.
Cool.
And you make a commitment that with a month from today, you're going to have that story written. Now, it might only be 2 pages, but write it and bring it here and find readers, who will look at your story and give you feedback on it. Whatever it is that you need in order to write, the clearer you can be, or create, or act, or work out, or whatever it is, the clearer you can be on what it is that motivates you to act, the easier it's going to be for you to get those resources and make it happen. But first, start by making the commitment. Therefore, when you don't do it, you'll be able to say, something stopped me. I did have a commitment. Now it's just a matter of, did you keep your word to yourself or not?
Yeah.
If it's just that, then solving this will improve every aspect of your life, because you'll start looking at other ways that you did not keep your promises to yourself.
I
Okay.
think you got it there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let me move on to the next person,
Thank
but
you.
I hope that helped.
It did. Thank you very much.
You betcha. All right. So, Otis.
Hey, what's happening? Question for Larry. What inspired you to write Ringworld?
Great question.
Oh, that was wonderful. In fact, I was working on something else, but I found out about Dyson spheres. The Dyson sphere was conceived as anything that can interrupt all of the sunlight from a sun. Science fiction writers immediately jumped on the simplification. It's a ping pong ball, 93 million miles in radius, and you live on the inside. Nobody was actually doing that, I think, but I took that idea, decided they didn't have gravity generators, so you have to spin it. You have to spin it so all of the water and air and soil winds up on the equator. Let's do without the rest of the ring world. Dyson sphere, and have just a ring.
How many Earths?
It'll be cheaper.
It had the surface area of how many Earths?
3 million. 3 million surface area is the Earth. If you build it to proportions for an Earth-like environment. It's cheaper, simpler, and you can see the stars.
Wow.
I just elaborated from there and found a lot of detail. And once the readers got hold of it, they found more detail.
So backing up just a little bit, he was able to do that because he'd done massive amounts of research into astrophysics and other things, just because he loves it. And then the writing came out of the love, the love motivated the research. It also motivated the writing, and the writing depended upon the research that he'd done. So you should be constantly learning. One of the things I say is that a writer should have a specialization, and just everybody in life should have a specialization. And at the thing that you decided to specialize on, you should aim at getting a doctorate. You should aim at getting a master's degree, or doing that equivalent amount of work. Larry can lecture at universities now, and you've lectured at many universities. He's at that level. He mastered astrophysics enough that he could sit at a table with other astrophysicists and have intelligent conversations, and even inject things into the conversation they hadn't thought of.
And I've had several specializations.
What are other specializations?
The magic goes away. An Earth-like universe in which the magic that sustained the gods is fading out. Gods are dying. The merfolk aren't participating or running the fishing expeditions anymore. So humans have got to learn to fish. There are, let's see, the werewolves have well, something like a ghetto, and they're dwindling. Dragons are dying and leaving skeletons that look tens of billions of years old, or tens of millions of years old.
Okay, I got to ask a question. If you're writing about a ring world, it's obvious that that comes from looking at scientific speculations like Dyson's sphere
Yeah,
and astrophysics.
yeah.
So what kind of research did you do to create a universe of magic?
I've read a lot of fairy stories,
Mm.
and it looked to me like the further into the past you go, the more powerful the magic was.
Mhm.
Extrapolating from that, I get what Bill Rossler, friend of mine, called rivets and sorcery. I write rivets and sorcery, sorcery that's written like hard science fiction.
So
That's the fun way to do fantasy.
Okay, so Larry Niven's mind, organized by studying science and studying science fiction, reading science fiction, and studying fairy tales. He thinks like a scientist to create science fiction, but when it's time for him to do fantasy, he organized it as if the fantasy was real. Magic is a non-renewable resource. When it runs out, you don't have any more magic. He created a way of looking at it that fit the mind that he had created. Do you see that? You see how that works? So that's why I said you find the thing that you love, you get really, 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 really good at it, and you will develop a unique voice. Nobody else will be able to write the way you write. Nobody can write Larry Niven stories except Larry Niven. I flatter myself that I was able to catch enough of his voice in some of our work to be able to play in there. But I never kidded myself that I'm not writing a Larry Niven story. I'm writing with Larry and I'm writing in a voice, but we have to find kind of a meeting place where his expertise and my expertise can create something together. And I was lucky enough that first thing that we did together, there was a hole there that I could fit with my understanding of human psychology. Because if it had been about astrophysics or even evolutionary biology, I would have been lost. But there was a little piece there where something that was my interest. And now we have a shared world. So what you're looking for is let your passion drive you to become an expert on something.
Yeah.
And then start writing. You go ahead.
David Brin paid me a great compliment once in print. He said, science fiction writers, most of them just borrow ideas that they've found from other writers. Some of us go into open up whole new fields, like alternate time tracks was
all the myriad ways.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of it. I've lost a name in my head, but David says Larry Niven opens up whole new fields and then strips them of everything.
That's rad.
That's great. You have any more questions, Otis?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So let's undo that, and now let's go to bum, bum, bum. Oh, we just did Otis. Okay, so we need Tom Barkley, and add spotlight for Tom Barkley. Okay, sound. You unmute yourself, Tom.
The buttons are not where they're supposed to be, Steve. Hi, Larry.
Hi.
Whoops. And of course, the dog is wondering why there's another voice in the house. Chewy, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Larry, you submitted short stories when you started out. And I'm wondering, when did you have the feeling that you could sustain a novel?
When Betty Ballantyne offered me a contract to expand World of Tavs,
Oh,
it isn't that I was totally sure I could do it. I knew I should try.
okay. So it was an external stimulus to
Yeah,
begin with.
How many stories had you sold by that at that point?
less than a dozen, I think.
How many stories had you written?
Uh, Not much more than that.
So how many stories did you write before you sold your first story?
Hard to say. Some of them didn't expand to be stories. I know I'd written The Warriors, the Xinti story. I know I'd written a neutron star form years ago. Maybe a dozen.
Okay.
Maybe a dozen stories by then, and not all of them were sent out to be bought.
Got it. So Larry, so one of the grandmasters of the science fiction field, as good as it gets, had written a dozen stories before he sold his first one. So that's a very, very that's I think Robert Heinlein sold the first story he wrote, supposedly, but the average writer writes about 30 stories before they sell. Okay, so if you know that, then the notion of papering your walls, there's no dishonor in that. In fact, the process of getting up and taking a swing suggests courage, commitment, focus, clarity, all those things that the desire, the faith that you can do it such that you will actually take the shot, research, organize, planning, commitment, persistence, those things. Are you seeing each of these things? And also we're looking at mastermind groups in terms of Fred Pohl and being able to have an intent. Just what is it he was trying to do? You said you're not just trying to entertain, you're trying to educate.
Yes,
Why did you want to educate?
I will settle for entertaining, and I will settle for educating. No, I won't. If I'm going to educate, I need to entertain too.
Why did you want to educate people?
I think that's built into my genes.
Got it.
I
Thank God.
I was born wanting to educate people, and also to learn.
And I think that you should be able to get a sense of one of the reasons why Larry and I have gotten along all these years. I needed someone who wanted to teach. He needed somebody who wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And just like I came that empty cup, teach me, Sifu. So it's like here we are all these years later. I still love being in the student position to him. It's just, it's a wonderful thing. Did you have any more questions, Tom?
Did you leave anything in your desk drawer when you were sending things out, or did you actually send everything that you had done up to that point?
I sent a story out when I thought it was complete.
I guess
And
he's
for
wondering,
the first year, I was wrong.
are there any stories that you wrote that you've never been able to publish?
Yes, but mind you, they they never quite got where I wanted them to.
They never gelled.
I was going to set a story in a spaceship that had been holed, so that water blocked the holes, and there were survivors aboard the ship. I just never got that going. There was a novelette I wrote about what I wanted was a skull with a handle on it. And that was because I had designed the Modi mediator. I hadn't called him that. I just had an alien with a solid backbone, and it extended up into the skull because vertebrae were a mistake.
Why are vertebrae a mistake?
Because backs go out on people.
Got it.
including my wife.
Got it.
I just knew too many people with back problems, and that was step one in designing an alien. Step two was the notion that if the next step in evolution of life on Earth would be an asymmetrical land crawler. So I gave an alien two agile manipulative arms and one very strong left arm. And that makes for an asymmetrical skull and only one ear.
Isn't a Modi similar to that?
It's a Modi I was designing.
It was a Modi. Okay.
But the novel just never went anywhere.
Got it. So you took that idea and then you put it into what may be your crowning achievement among God's eye.
Wound up in my desk until Jerry Pournelle showed up with an empire of man of nearly 1,000 worlds.
Cool.
And then we ran from there.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, and now let's see. We have Jim Early. Add spotlight. Remove spotlight from Tom. Tananri, would you remove Tom's spotlight?
None left. There you
Okay,
go.
that's okay. So, Jim.
Two discussions brought up two questions that I've had. The first one, you were talking about science and your development of sorcery and how they were different. Reminded me of the Flying Sorcerers novel with
David Gerald.
Collaborated with David. And
that was my first collaboration.
Huh?
That was my first collaboration. I was winging it, and so was he. Although he had certainly collaborated on television.
So
we were just hacking around, and we wrote it for humor.
Yeah, it was. I was wondering if it was mostly for the humor, or if you'd actually developed had a plan for the magic and the science interacting, or if it was just you kind of went along with what the scene needed.
We were winging it for sure. Right to the end.
So the other one was when you were describing how the ring world, how you were inspired by the Dyson sphere, and I kind of suspected that's how you did it. But the integral trees, how did that come up? How did you come up with the idea for those?
Yeah. The integral trees is better science than the ring world. It started when the first probe went past Saturn, and a bunch of science fiction fans and writers showed up at JPL and were allowed to watch and interact. We used to sit around the cafeteria. It's surrounded by television screens. I remember B. Joe Trimble saying, "Oh, it's just another goddamn spectacular view of Saturn." Anyway, we had a ball that time, but there was a presentation. They sat us down and made us watch a presentation on what they expected to find at Saturn. And Titan, they told us Titan is too small to hold an atmosphere. You can prove it mathematically, but the gas around Titan escapes molecule by molecule and goes into orbit around Saturn and presently winds up back on Titan. So they're expecting to have 1.5 times as much surface pressure as Earth's, and they got it. Meanwhile, I'm extrapolating to something extreme, as is my wont, and I put a neutron star in a system and a gas giant further out, and the gas giants got leaving a smoke ring around the neutron star. And I extrapolated from there. I gave it a companion yellow dwarf star, so they wouldn't have to see by radiation. And I stranded a ship in the smoke ring and let them survive for 500 years.
They actually their physiology began to change. Their limbs got longer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I gave them uh, the jungle giants prehensile toes, like a friend of mine named Elaine Pells.
Elaine Pells has prehensile toes?
Elaine Pells yes.
Oh, interesting. I never knew that.
Mhm.
So that was epigenetic change. It wasn't evolution. They just kind of shifted the way
Yeah.
the genes were expressing.
In low gravity and free fall, humanity changes. I made everybody tall except the dwarves, and the dwarves are your size.
Okay.
The trees themselves, did you have a evolutionary path for how they developed? What?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, my head keeps working on them ever since I finished the books. The integral trees, which used to be spoke trees until I showed the outline to Robert Forward, and he pointed out the winds are going to be terrific, going like that.
Yeah,
why the tree winds up like that.
that's how I got the shape. Yeah.
Uh, the trees they make more little trees, not by having babies, but by coming apart at the middle, and they defecate by coming apart at the middle and dropping all the stuff that's been accumulating from the tree mouths.
Are they almost like animals? Or
they're not animals, they're plants.
They are plants. Okay.
But they're trees with two tufts and no roots.
One of the things, you're known for your astrophysics, but you're also known for your exobiology.
Yeah.
So what kind of research did you do when you began to create aliens? You're known for your aliens. So what kind of research took you there?
I started reading science fiction around age 8 because I'd gotten tired of fairy stories. I've been reading science fiction. I've been learning my physics from Robert Heinlein and then getting corrections from my school classes. So I was ready. I was ready to shape aliens.
So basically your research for creating aliens was reading other science fiction, and then
and then learning in school.
And learning in school biology.
Mhm.
Okay, so you paid attention.
Yeah.
You were interested. Okay.
And I was interested in correcting the mistakes. That's a game we all learn.
That other writers had made?
Yeah.
Aha. So can you mention a major mistake that you found in the aha moment and how you felt about finding it?
Okay, I can't claim it's a mistake, but it annoyed the hell out of me.
What was it?
The guy's name was Chad Oliver, and I never met him, but he was a prolific writer whose aliens were all human, right down to the vermiform appendix.
So he simply was too
Yeah, I
anthropomorphized.
read
No,
enough Chad Oliver.
anthropogenic? What would that term?
Hmm?
What would the term be? He just centered human beings, that anthropogenic or something like that.
Parallel evolution is probably the term.
Okay.
And I read enough of those to get annoyed, so I designed the Pearson's Puppeteer.
Good for you.
As a convincing tool-using alien that doesn't look at all like a human being.
Okay. Anything else, Jim?
No, thanks.
You bet. Okay. So we need to unpin, remove spotlight. Okay, great. So I'm going to remove the spotlight and I'm going to see I think that this is the time, there might be questions that have nothing to do with writing and nothing to do with Larry that have to do with me. I often ask people to come and ask questions. So this is a great time for anybody who has any questions about what we're doing here, which is trying to set ourselves up to make 1% improvement every week. Today has been a really real bonus for people who are specifically interested in writing, and specifically if you're science fiction readers. But I want to make sure that we're on track with our other things. So we have any comments, questions, or requests from you guys on any of the things that we cover here during this hour and a half that we have every week. And this is an opportunity for you to volunteer, or you will be voluntold. Nalina, I would like very much what is going on in the Lena world, because you've always got interesting things going. What are you working on the most that you would like to improve by 1%?
Maybe more than 1%. I'm actually working on a manuscript. It's called Deuces Wild, and it's not sci-fi. I love you guys, so I'm here because I love y'all. Mine is more contemporary fiction or romantic suspense, in the sense that it is about a twin who's a former Navy SEAL who finds that her twin's organs have been illegally removed, and she's tracking down the people who have her sister's organs and to retrieve them.
She's trying to retrieve her sister's organs.
Yep.
I assume that they were removed in a way that was sufficiently medically based that the sister is still alive.
The sister is still alive. They got part of a lung. They got liver.
Oh my God.
Her
Okay.
and a kidney.
Okay. So these people, what was their motivation for not killing her? I have to ask.
Because the person that served her up fell in love with her and
Oh,
last moment, begged to let her live. And that's what they did.
that's sick and kind of fun.
Yeah,
So it is.
I've learned more about transplantation. They do retransplant people's organs. It's a whole world. The red market was very interesting to study. Like, Israel and India are the capital of the world.
Yeah, I read The Red Market. That's a scary book.
It is, but it also, in her doing that, and the people that paid to have those organs taken illegally. So it's a conundrum, in the sense that you would want, if it was my body, I would want my stuff back. But also, too, what she has to do to get them back.
Is she going to have to take organs out of people's bodies?
Yeah, she has it all centered at bringing them all in one place, to have a doctor to take them out and another one to put them in. It's a place in Nebraska that has a population of 1. There is a place, but I had to create a fictional place because there is a place in Nebraska where there is a population of 1 person. She has to pay off that person in order to create an operation satellite station to bring the medical staff there and the equipment to pull this off.
What's the title of your book?
Deuces Wild.
Deuces Wild. How does that speak to the thematics or the characters? How does that title what does that title express?
And her twin's name is Ace.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like you're really on top of this.
I'm trying, and actually there is an editor at Imprint at Macmillan who's been on a phone call with me. Once she wanted me to cut the first 3 chapters because it was the background of how they ended up in Chicago. She wanted to get straight to the woman being in the hospital where they found that the organs had been taken. And the doctor that's involved is a high school sweetheart. So he's very morally correct. So it puts his morals in the balance in order to do this. And she puts him in this position where he can't say no. And there's an ultimatum. Either I do this, and if I do this, there's no more us.
Larry was just talking to me about how he had to cut stuff from one of his greatest books. So tell us a little bit about that, Larry.
Yeah. We turned in a novel called A Mote in God's Eye. And our editor, Jim and Robert Heinlein both got copies, and they both suggested, among other things, that we chop off the first 100 pages.
Yeah.
And we did that.
And it became an all-time classic.
Yeah.
So what you've got there is a number of different things, but one of them is the value of the mastermind. That's the editor, the person who knows, the person who's on the other side of the issue, the person that you're going to miss if you self-publish, which is one of the reasons why I'd be scared
It's
to
a major
self-publish.
house. It's an imprint of a major publishing house that's looking.
Yes.
I've been
And
on the
so,
phone with her once, 3 emails. She, like I said, she wanted the first 3 cut, but she also still wanted the information in. So I had to find a way to flashback some of it. So I kept about 50% that mattered. And then I was able to use it in flashbacks because she still wanted the information though.
right. Well, here's a question that I often ask. When does the reader need to hear that information? There's a point at which the reader knows nothing about the characters.
Mhm.
And then there's a point at which if you haven't told them something in the past that influences who they are now, the reader will start asking, well, why don't they ever get into a red car? And now you can tell the story about how somebody tried to drag them into a red car when they were 12 years old. It doesn't matter if the story is about somebody getting their kidneys stolen, but it might matter if the person trying to get the kidneys back can't take a red cab and therefore loses sight of a suspect. See,
Yeah.
so finding the right moment at which, the way Robert McKee says, turn exposition into ammunition.
Yes.
What is the point at which the exposition becomes explosive? Not only that, but you're cheating the reader if you don't tell them. And if there is no point at which the reader will ever care that much, why do you need to tell them? Is that really what you need? You got 400 pages. You can't tell their whole lives. Make sure that everything you say is deepening the character, deepening the world, increasing their interest in it, increasing their, the total enjoyment. I have seen authors who stopped a story to tell a dirty joke, and I appreciated it because the entire tone of the story was slightly absurdist. It was Leslie Charteris. He did that in one of the Saint stories. He actually just stopped the story and told a dirty joke. And because he'd earned that, you went along with it, because part of the fun of these stories is just the breezy way it's being told. But you're talking about a propulsive techno thriller, medical thriller about a badass soldier who's out there trying to get her sister's organs back. And I assume there's a ticking time bomb. It has to be done within 72 hours. It has to be done, something like that. Get that clock going. Make us feel it. Make us scared. And then once that happens, ask, where have I earned a pause? Where have I earned a moment where the reader is saying, well, just got finished with that fight scene, that chase scene, I'm ready to slow down for a bit. Okay. So, you get them into their refractory period where, because you literally can't keep making things tenser and tenser and tenser. You have to break the tension. So sometimes a flashback can break the tension, allowing them to relax, setting themselves up for another peak. Okay.
Yes, that's the.
I love the idea of your story, hon.
It's dark. It's darker than what I normally write, but also too, I was very fascinated by this world because now so many more people are needing organ transplants, and it's this whole thing about donors and things that are happening in other countries that they're forcing people to donate them, and I'm bridging all of that, but it was the negotiation of getting those organs back that is the most interesting part of it. Say the uterus, especially because the woman didn't want it in the first place, but her husband wanted her to have it because it's tied to the money. So now she says, if I give it back, I need you to kill him.
Well, you look, this book is yours to blow. I mean, the situation is good.
Yeah.
That's a story. And so now it's just a matter of telling that story in a way that blows people's socks off.
It was fun.
Great to advise you. You seem to be entirely on top of this.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so nice to meet you guys. And you guys mentioned Robert Heinlein. I love Friday. I loved his work. Yes.
Yeah. So Tom Barkley is saying that your book is going to be a bestseller.
Thanks, Tom. And I thank Alexander for offering me, if I need further research on transplanting organs, I have a very good friend who does exactly that. She is one of the best for procuring organs and arranging their transport. Alexander, I will take you up on that. See?
Yeah, we're a good group for people who have questions. That there are some very, very, very smart people
Mhm.
in this group. And the mastermind is the only known way to compensate for a lack of capacity in some way. In your case, it's obvious that the only thing you might lack is specialized knowledge. So
Yes.
you can take the time to do that. But if there's a group of people you can ask questions of, they can often save you months just in terms of saying, oh, this book over here, this specific book, this specific person. So, welcome. That was a great share. And thank you very much, Nalita.
Thank you. And the young man who asked about publishing, at the end, if we have some time, I would like to address what he said about self-publishing and traditional as a
Why don't
literary.
you do that right now?
Okay. Traditional publishing means that your book is everywhere at once, but you still have to do a massive amount of marketing and promotion to make those books fly off the shelves or you'll be backlisted. Self-publishing, you have full control, but you drive the process from the cover design, from the editing, all the way through. You learn what you're getting and what you're giving up. So I always recommend doing both. You do that so that you learn what you're getting and what you're giving up. And then if you're going with that publishing house, sir, look at what they've done for others. Check the reviews, check the status. Also check the Authors Guild and Authors Beware, because if they're on those platforms, those are the ones that you want to stay away from. Also, if you're going to do a traditional publishing route, sign up with Query Tracker. That's where they will line you up with an agent who represents the type of books that you want to get a traditional book deal for.
Thank you. And Nalina, put your contact information in chat. What I will say is that I know Nalina, she has been of use to me at my level in my career, so you can trust her. That she is a really good advisor of these things, and she gives a lot away for free, but she also has professional consultation. So I would endorse her. She will give you fair value.
Thank you
Okay.
so much for that.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to be able to have people who I know can do it. When you meet people who can do it, I want to hook them up, because there are too many people out there who cannot. And I'm going to be talking to you very soon about my book for the Magic Formula. It's that you're going to be the first person that I talk to about that.
Indeed.
All right.
And who he just put in the chat, Leslie Esdale Banks, I was her PR person. I was her marketing and promotion person. So yes, she didn't do self-publishing. She was picked up by a contest and then she went with the major publishing house. So she didn't self-publish though.
Great. This is fantastic. Let me remove the spotlight. Let me just see. Does anybody have any other comments, questions, requests? We're almost out of time here, and I just want to make really sure that everyone gets handled. This is, I love this. I love you guys. I guess let me make a comment. I did a column. I do daily little mini essays over on Facebook. One of the things I was talking about is the fact you can't allow people to manipulate you with language. That if you find that when people say things, it can have a devastating effect on your mood, you need to realize that your emotions are not created by what people say. Your emotions are going to be created by the way you interpret what they say. And if people can control you with words, you will never be the best you can be in life. This is not a thing to try to induce guilt or anything like that. It's just saying that if you want to be the best you can be, you have to have control of your own emotions. Your emotions are going to determine what you can do. Your emotions are the fuel for what you can do. So you have to control that. Now, and that leads me to another thought right there. If you're feeling fear, negative emotions, especially positive emotions too, are action signals, emotion. They're triggers, they're signals to do something. So if you're afraid and you do something with that emotion that's positive, you know that it's effective if you forget about the fear. that basically when you're in appropriate motion, before I get out to fight, I feel fear. While I'm fighting, I don't feel anything. It's just the energy is there. That it's the excitement of doing the thing. So one of the ways you can tell that you're not taking effective action is if you're feeling negative emotion, because you're supposed to take that negative emotion and put it into action. Does that make sense? So you can actually use that. I am feeling this. What do I need to do? Find the thing to do that allows you to take that energy and put it into something. And just Alexander, when you're, do you get jitters before your performances?
Almost every time, especially when it's people that I know.
Okay. And when you're performing, do you feel jitters?
Not really.
Right.
Once I get into it, I'll start off a set with something that I can do automatically to get the wahoo out. And then I get into a center place and then no, I'm fine.
Right. So the emotion, the negative emotion, the butterflies, the adrenal burger, however we want to put that, is what happens before you perform. Do you ever not have jitters before you perform?
Only if, and I've found this one out, only if I'm so full of arrogance that I'll end up doing one of the worst shows ever if I feel it.
Yes. So in essence, fear is a signal that you're going to do a good job.
Yeah.
So you can actually, there's fear again. Great. Fantastic. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it into my performance. Does that make sense? Is that relatively accurate?
Yeah. Yeah, it is for me.
Great. Fantastic. I figured you'd say that. That's great. Well, listen, people, it's almost that time. And actually, just a real quick thing. Suzanne Paul, you've been sitting there smiling. I'm going to put you on spotlight. Just tell us how you're doing today.
I am doing fine. I've just been smiling because this has been such a positive experience and such good information that everybody has been sharing.
Aren't wonderful? Aren't these great? Aren't these good people?
Very good people. And it's reminding me that, well, about 5 years ago, I had a short story published and I never really followed up on that.
She wants me to call her.
So I've been trying to get back into writing and trying to get back into being creative. And this has been such a positive and inspiring hour that I think
sweetheart. The water's fine. The water's fine. Writers are my favorite people. And there are only three things in the world that I wanted as a child. I wanted to be a writer, I wanted to be a martial artist, I wanted a family to love. And God was good to me. I've got all three. Okay. And if the first thing, and we've been advising people to read Think and Grow Rich, because I'm just kind of going over that right now. And next month it'll be something else. But the first thing is desire. If you've got the desire to do it, then absolutely get at least one story published. Do not die without having published one story and cashing the check. There is a part of you that would be so don't lie and tell me that's not the truth. Wouldn't you love to get a check for one of your stories? Wouldn't you love to have a story published and have people looking at it and telling you, I enjoyed that? Wouldn't that make the little girl inside you happy?
Oh, absolutely.
Give her that gift and we will help you do it. You just come here and we will give you the enthusiasm. We will give you the knowledge. There's a 6-step process that we use here. The first step is commit to writing one sentence a day. That's it. Just one sentence a day. Get going. Okay. The other thing is you write 1 to 4 short stories a month, and they can be 1-page stories. I don't care, but get used to finishing. Okay. Get out there. The next thing is finish, polish, and submit at least 1 story every month. Once again, it could be just 2 pages, but that's you're getting used to writing, you're getting used to finishing, you're getting used to sending stuff out and dealing with that fear. And then you don't rewrite except to editorial request. Did you hear Larry talking about the fact that he rewrote his story 4 times because Fred Pohl, the greatest editor in the science fiction field, said something to him, came down from Olympus and said, you are worthy of my time. Come with me, young man. I will make you a writer. This is how it works. You see? This is the man who I went to saying, I published some stuff, but I know that there's a world of things I don't know. Help me, please. And things worked out for him to help me. God bless him. I love Larry with all my heart. I choke up whenever I think about how much he means to my life, and I'm so glad to be able to share him with my people here. You can see this is how the world works. If your heart wants this, go for it. Absolutely. If you will promise right now that you'll do this work, I will promise to support you. Do you want that support?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Then you can get it here from me, and Shananari will be on. I'm telling you, we love writers. Now, we give stuff away for free. If you would like to join our program, Life Writing Premium, go to lifewritingpremium.com, but you don't have to join the program for us to support you. This is what we do for free because we love it and because people gave to us. It's as simple as that, honey. So it's
thank
write
you.
at least a sentence a day, write and finish one to 4 short stories a month, finish at least one and send it out. Don't rewrite except to editorial request. Read 10 times as much as you write. And the last step is repeat this process 100 times. So that means if you give yourself 100 stories before you start judging yourself, Larry made it to about a dozen before he published. I made it to about 23 before I published. Nobody, not a single one of our students who's followed our path has made it past 25 before they publish. So I can pretty much guarantee you, if you will promise to write 25 stories, if you don't make it, if you don't sell a story, if you take my advice, if you don't sell a story by 25, I will give you $100 because I believe in you. Fair enough?
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you so
Just
much.
feeling that way tonight. All right. So that's great. You come back and you let us know how you're doing
Tom
and how we
Barkley
can
wants
support
to
you. Talk to the people
talk to me
in
about
chat.
his
You make
kids'
friends.
music
You
book
find people to
project.
connect with. And what I would like to do now is, Larry, is there anything final that you would like to say while we have you here? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I don't have anything universal, but I should warn you that writing a one-page story is very difficult. The shorter you write, you think it would be the easier to sell. But just because it's short, you still have to have a story.
Well, you do have a story.
Well, that's great. Well, listen, that's our show for today. Let's remove the spotlight, and I would like for everybody to unmute yourselves and to say hi and goodbye to everybody and give everybody virtual high fives. And just thank you for being here.
See everybody next week.
Hello.
That's
Thank
right.
you,
I'll see
Larry.
next week. And I'd
Thank
like to
you.
close this as I always do with these Sanskrit
Goodbye now.
expressions that says
Have a
that the
great week.
divinity within me salutes and acknowledges the divinity within each and every one of you. Namaste. Have a wonderful
Namaste.
weekend. Thanks for being here.
Everyone.